Yo, what up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Finally, I know it's been kind of a while. It's been like just over 2 months, I do believe, since our last upload, and apologize for that. It definitely was not part of the plan originally. Just like the past couple of years, I had planned on uploading the race vlogs, you know, the week that the race took place, getting home, editing the video and getting that uploaded for you guys and doing some GoPro throughout the season and stuff like that. But to be perfectly honest, after I saw how well the first couple of rounds were going for us, you guys are following around, you'll know that, you know, we were up in the mix for sure, you know, scoring points, getting in the low 20s like every race. And once I saw how well that we were doing, I kind of had like an internal talk with myself where I was like, look man, this is the first year where you had the ability to really put some serious work in, and it's paying off massively. You're kind of like, you know, right on the cusp of being like one of the guys. And I just knew that if I got to the end of the season and I didn't give it my 100% everything that I had in racing, I was gonna regret it. And I would look back and always wonder like, man, what could have been if I would have just put my heart and soul into this season. And quite frankly, I just didn't want to have to think about that or imagine what that would feel like. And so that's exactly what I did. Kind of had that internal talk with myself where I was like, look, you need to just set the camera aside, set the editing aside, and just finally, for once in my life, focus on being a professional athlete, professional motocross racer. You know, I've had my pro license since 2014. That was my first year pro. First pro national was 2014 Redbud. And you know, I've held this pro license ever since then. And I've never truly felt or treated myself like I was a professional athlete. You know, I always felt like, oh, this was just something I did for fun. This was just something I did while I was in school. This is just something I do for content, whatever. I never really truly like took myself seriously as a professional athlete, and I knew that, you know, every time I was out on the track there was some luck involved with it, and I was just out there to have fun, circulate, finish as well as I could, but like the results really never really mattered to me. And so I just never really felt like I was truly a professional motocross racer, and that always bummed me out. You know, for tons of different reasons, whether it was school, content, injuries, whatever. I never have felt prepared going into a pro national before. I never felt like I was fit enough. I never felt like I had my bike dialed enough. I never felt like I was fast enough. I kind of always felt like it was just a scramble, and every time I would go to a pro national, I was just hoping that I was gonna make it in. Hoping that I wasn't gonna have to go to an LCQ, like hoping that I could put just the absolute perfect qualifying lap together and just make it to the moto so I can kind of enjoy the day. And I just hated that feeling, man. I'm the type of person who has a lot of self-doubt, especially when, you know, I'm kind of on the bubble every weekend. I kind of go to the race just kind of assuming that that's where I'm gonna be. And it would get to the point where I was sometimes like, man, what am I even doing? Like, why am I going to these races when I'm unprepared? I'm having all these like negative thoughts about myself. I just didn't like that feeling, man. And once I saw the start that I was off to this season, you know, just everything was going so well, those thoughts kind of started to fade from my mind, and I could finally focus on like what exactly it was that I was going to the races to do. You guys obviously know from watching the vlogs these past couple years, it's not like I've ever really been a contender in these races before. You know, I'm fortunate enough to have the talent to be able to put a solid lap in and qualify or race my way in through the LCQ, but you know, once I got in those motos, I was lucky to be in the 20s. You know, I was like a 28 to like 35th place guy pretty regularly. And yeah, it's a lot of fun to be out there doing that, but like at the end of the day, that's not really where I want to be. And I just had my priorities all in the wrong areas. I was too focused on the content and making videos during the week, and it was taking a lot of time away from, you know, the bike prep or the practicing, training, bike testing and stuff that I could have been doing otherwise. And finally this season I said, enough of that. I'm going to give it my all and just see exactly where it is that we land. And I know a lot of you guys have been following the season and kind of watching where we've been finishing and stuff. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you would have seen all the updates, but I'm sure there's a lot of you who have no idea how I did this season. And without spoiling too much for you guys, this season went just incredibly well, way better than I ever could have hoped for. And so for that reason, you know, if I had to go back and do it all again, I would do it the exact same way. It's unfortunate that that means the videos obviously grind to a halt, but I know that you guys are stoked for me, and I know you guys would rather see me do well than be uploading consistently throughout the season, and I'm really lucky for that. So thank you guys for that. Hopefully now that I'm uploading again, you guys will come back and keep watching, but I guess it's understandable if everyone has forgotten about me by this point, so hopefully that's not the case. But but you know, it is what it is. But don't worry guys, I did actually film at every single pro national as if I was making the vlogs. So I have all this footage stockpiled from the nationals that I will be turning into pro national race vlogs, so those will be coming out really soon. And now that it's the end of the season, you know, it's content time, baby, so we're gonna be getting back into doing videos full time, so those will be rolling out here really soon. But yeah, just extremely proud of myself and the whole crew this season, so wouldn't have done it any other way. And that kind of segues into the topic of this video, like how exactly I did get just so much better and make so much progress this year. It's pretty unheard of for someone at this level to make like noticeable progress in a year. Over the last couple of years, I've been making like marginal improvements. You know, in 2019, the first year I was doing the vlogs, I was on my Honda 250, and I think I qualified for like 6 of the 9 rounds that we went to or something like that. 2020 season, I think I qualified for all of them except for one, but probably went to a handful of LCQs. And then last year I qualified for every single national, and I think I probably only went to like maybe 2 LCQs or something like that. So every year has been a little bit of progress, but the difference from last year to this year has been like astronomical. Like I said, I would be lucky to be in the 20s last year or any other year previous to this one. And this year it was like, started the season 23rd, worked my way into getting points, and I was just kind of like always hovering around that low 20s every weekend, and like qualifying was pretty much no issue anymore. I would qualify really well, and it's crazy for someone like this deep in the sport to make that kind of progress. Obviously, if you're kind of new to the sport, or you know, if you're going from like the C to the B class or the B class to the A class, it's kind of normal to see it like that level of progression. But you know, there's like that power curve of return on investment. You know, when you're starting in the sport, you can make a lot of progress really quick, and as you get deeper and deeper into the sport, you know, the return on your investment starts to taper off. And you know, I'm obviously way up here at this point, and so for me to be able to find like that much progress in a year is pretty wild. And so I figured I would share like my thought process and just what I was doing this preseason to kind of unlock some of that potential. And you know, maybe it'll help you guys out, or at least maybe it'll just motivate you to kind of find that next level. End of the day, that's really what it's all about. So biggest thing for me definitely was simply just seat time. For various different reasons, ever since I turned pro, I've never been able to really put together like a preseason. Most of the time it was school that would hinder me. You know, I was in high school when I first went pro. I took 1 year off in 2015 before I went to college, but I tore some ligaments in my knee right before the season, so that kind of ruined that one for me. And then after that, I started college. So 2016, 17, 18, 19, and the beginning of 20, I was in school. So I'd be in school from August until May. I'd ride my bike like once every 2 weeks or so. And then class would normally end like the second week of May, and Hangtown was like May 18th or something like that. So I would realistically have 2 weeks of preparation time, which is just not enough. It's absolutely silly for me to think that I would be competitive with 2 weeks of riding under my belt. But you know, it is what it is. That was the program we were on. That's what we had to work with. Heading into 21, I finally wasn't in college that winter, but unfortunately that's the winter that I decided to try Supercross. So I went out to California. You guys know right around Christmas time, I ended up breaking my wrist. I didn't know it was broken, so I kept riding on it, and that kind of like prolonged the recovery time. And so then once I finally figured out that it was broken, obviously that kind of trashed Supercross, and it kind of messed up my outdoor schedule as well, because it set my recovery time so far back that I didn't start riding until like April. And then like I said, May is when the season starts. So I had like 1 month to get ready for last year's season. And I just kept shooting myself in the foot. You know, my time was always so split between either school, content, riding, tons of different stuff too, that like realistically, I mean, I went back and kind of did some math on like, you know, how many hours were on each bike that I've sold for the past couple of years, and I'm averaging like 40 to 50 hours of riding time per year. It's not even an hour a week. For a professional, that is like absolutely mind-blowing. I would bet that, you know, the top guys like Eli Tomac are putting that much time on their bike like every month and a half, maybe 2 months. And I would say that's probably less riding time than even just like the average weekend warrior puts in a year. I mean, 1 hour a week, like I would say probably most of you guys ride that much, honestly. And so I was always just kind of fooling myself that I could like actually run with some of those big dogs who had all the support and they were riding as much as they were. It was pretty silly of me, but that was also kind of motivating, because I was like, look at what I'm doing with what I have. On top of like school and content, I would also just make a lot of excuses to myself, like not out loud to you guys, but I would, you know, internally make excuses as to why I couldn't go ride certain days. In the past, it was the workspace that I had to work in. If you guys are from the Midwest, you know tracks normally ride like 4 to 8 p.m. around here. And so it's pretty tough to wash your bike before you go to bed. So there would be plenty of days where I would wake up, walk out into my parents' garage where I have like a 4-foot by 6-foot little work area to work in. I would see my bike is dirty, the oil probably needed to be changed, air filters needed to be done, and I would see that little tight workspace I had to work in, and I'd be like, wow, I have probably 3 to 4 hours of work to do before I even leave to go to the track. Then I'm gonna spend 5 to 6 hours, you know, with traveling, actually unloading, being at the track, coming back home, washing once I get home. It's probably like 5-6 hours into the riding trip itself. After you pay for gas, entries, food at a gas station, you know, you're probably spending $80 to $100 a day. You know, it was like I would make all these excuses and reasons in my head as to why it would actually be smarter for me to just say, screw it, I'll do bike work tomorrow. I'm just gonna go to the gym for 2 hours or something like that, you know? Maybe I'll just go for a bike ride or do some core or edit a video or whatever, you know? At that point, I was reasoning with myself as to why I shouldn't go ride my dirt bike. And I would do that so often, probably every other time, maybe even 2 out of 3 times when I had plans to go to the track, I would just somehow talk myself out of going because there were things that I could be doing otherwise that would, you know, either make me money, you know, make YouTube videos or something like that, or, you know, I would somehow tell myself that spending 2 hours in the gym was just as good as going to the dirt bike track. And obviously you guys know there is absolutely no replacement for seat time. Don't get me wrong, you know, gym wise, I was fit, man. I could go out for a 30 to 40 mile bike ride by myself and average like 25, 26 miles an hour. I was a beast on a bicycle. I could lift. I actually got pretty shredded there for a bit. I would say my normal race weight previously was like 170 to 175. And just over the last couple of years, I got up to like 190 just because I was freaking ripped from going to the gym like 5-6 days a week. I think 190 is probably pretty normal for someone that's my height, being like just under 6'2". But for a professional motocross racer, like 190 pounds is just not cutting it no matter how tall you are. So this preseason, I finally told myself, like, screw it, man. I'm gonna just cut the gym out. I'm not gonna make any excuses for myself anymore. Obviously, I have this incredible workshop now where I'm actually excited to come out and work on my bike every day. I kind of just come out here, sit down in my chair, look at the bikes, and I'm just like, huh, you know, maybe I'll retorque the front end, you know? It looks like maybe it's been a couple rides since I torqued the front end, so I'll just go ahead and do that. And I'm like, oh, I got a couple dirty air filters. Guess I'll go wash all those today, you know? I'm actually excited to come out here and do bike work, and so my bike is just always like pristine and ready to go. So I got rid of that excuse. Bridget and I actually moved like 20 minutes further into the country away from the gym. So honestly, now it's like a pain to go to the gym. So I kind of got rid of that excuse. And beyond that, I just told myself I was gonna be a different guy this year. I wasn't gonna cut out any seat time whenever I could get it. So this preseason, I think my practice bike had 10 hours on it in March when we started riding. And by the start of the season, I had almost 60 hours on it. So just in those 2 months, I put more time on my bike than I had put on an entire year for the last like 5 seasons, which is just absolutely nuts. I went to the gym maybe 3 times, but I didn't do any weightlifting. I just did all body weight, like high intensity interval training, stuff like that. I still rode my road bike a lot, but it was all more so just recovery. Like once I got off the dirt bike, I would go for a recovery ride just to spin out some of the lactic acid, and I wasn't like focused on getting personal bests on my road bike or anything like that. And yeah, I just had a way better mentality about it. You know, in the past, like going into a preseason, every single time I went to the track, it was so focused on just putting long motos in to get my moto fitness up that I couldn't even focus on doing anything with my bike. I couldn't focus on technique at all. I couldn't focus on doing like sprint drills because I just knew I was so far out of moto shape and the season was so close that I had no choice. I had to just do as long of motos as possible, and that was it. This season, I got in such good moto shape so quickly that I was able to actually plan out my days smartly at the track, and it allowed me to do an insane amount of testing on my bike. Every single time I went to the track, it was like a learning experience, not only like adjusting clickers or changing parts on my bike, but also I could just focus so much more on like technique and doing sprints and stuff like that. And every time I went to the track, I felt like I was becoming just a better rider. You know, if there was a corner that I was struggling in, I would just take a minute and kind of just figure out, you know, try a couple different things. You know, weight my outside peg a little more, maybe try standing through it, maybe try a taller gear, maybe try making some bike adjustments with clickers to try and, you know, settle the rear end down a little bit, or, you know, whatever it was. I could actually take the time to focus on that because I got in moto shape so early. And that's like probably the coolest thing. I mean, obviously it's one thing to do better in a season because you just rode more and got more fitness, but I truly actually just got faster this year. I mean, you can look at qualifying times and I'm like probably 2 to 3 seconds faster just in qualifying than I was last year. And I think that's just a result of trying all these different parts, just being comfortable and trying new things and just learning new things on my dirt bike. You know, in past years, I knew that like my bike was never super dialed and I never really tested anything too much, but it was like, it didn't even matter if I did make changes. It wasn't gonna matter. You know, like even if I had Ryan Dungy's mechanic out here working on my bike every day, it wasn't gonna make me any faster because honestly, I wasn't even in good enough shape to where it would matter. I could ride a factory Red Bull KTM in the moto and I would finish in the exact same place because I was just, you know, that's where I was. Now it seemed like every week I would be making changes to find that extra quarter or half a second that I needed to pass the 2 or 3 guys ahead of me. And I think it just all comes down to seat time, honestly, and getting my priorities straight. I partnered with a local suspension company, Turbo Speed Tuning, and we probably went through 3 or 4 different suspension settings just in preseason. In the past, I would work with Race Tech directly out in California, and Turbo Speed Tuning is still a Race Tech distributor, so I was still partnered with Race Tech, but it was just through a local shop instead. And so in the past, I would work directly with the Race Tech guys out in California, and it would be like, you know, probably a 2 or 3 week turnaround time when I would send a set of suspension out there. They would do it immediately, but it just takes a while to send suspension. It was also kind of expensive to be shipping suspension and stuff like that. So I like realistically couldn't make any changes to it because of the time commitment that it would take. And I can't really be without my suspension for 3 weeks when the season is 5 weeks away, you know? Whereas on the flip side, this season working with Turbo Speed, they're 20 minutes up the road. So, you know, the first setting they gave me was really good, but I had just a couple little suggestions I wanted to make, and they said, yeah, let's do it. Bring it over here. We'll have it ready to go in 2 days, and then we'll come out to the track and see if it's better or worse. And we did that probably 3 or 4 times, and each one I was happy with, but each one was better than the last. I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, my bike is freaking dialed. And all these things just come together to just make me so much more confident. I mean, you guys know how mental of a sport motocross is. It's one thing to be physically fit and have a good bike, but to have the mindset to go with it is just crazy. For me, like I said earlier, I'm normally someone who has a lot of self-doubt. Like all preseason, all off-season, even during the season, I really doubt myself a lot. And this year, I just knew that the work that I put in this preseason, riding, testing, doing all that stuff, it just gave me so much more confidence that when I went on race day, I knew that like for once in my life, I was ready. And the craziest part is, I know for a fact that I am not even close to my ceiling yet. Being perfectly honest with you guys, I didn't know if the training and stuff that I was putting in this season was gonna do any difference at all. Because sometimes, you know, you get in this mindset where you're like, I've gotten as fast as I'm gonna get. I think everyone kind of has that ceiling where, you know, if you try really, really hard, you can maybe get a tiny bit better, but you just kind of have this like natural limitation, whether it's ability or natural talent, genes, I don't know what it is exactly, but I kind of felt like I was getting there because for the past few seasons, I'd kind of done like basically the same. And I had a lot of moments this preseason where I was like, man, like what am I putting all this work in for just to be like a 30 to 35th place guy again, you know? But once again, I learned that, you know, the power of hard work is pretty incredible. And I think the most exciting thing that I learned from putting all that work in and seeing the result is that I know I can work even way harder than I worked before. And I know now that like some of these dreams that I've had that seemed wildly impossible before are like actually super achievable for me. Last year I would have said it would be crazy to even score points this season. You know, now after this season I'm thinking to myself like, shoot man, if I find 1 or 2 more seconds, I'm gonna be like a top 15 place guy. If I could find maybe 3 or 4 seconds a lap, we're gonna be like knocking on the door for like some kind of fill-in ride for like a Twisted Tea or Club MX type thing. And I'm just sitting here like, wow. I mean, so many more things seem possible for me now that I never ever would have thought would be possible before. So I think that's the most exciting part, is I know my ceiling is way higher than I thought it was previously. And if anything, I'm just even more excited and hungry to keep working this off season and start training earlier, keep progressing on my bike, working with the Turbo Speed Tuning guys and all these great companies I have in my corner. Beyond that, I also have like an incredibly crazy, like talented friend group around here, and I've had a lot of good guys to train with this preseason. Normally I'm just kind of riding by myself, but you know, one of the biggest guys that I've had to train with is Chris Perbula, who, if you guys aren't familiar, he's number 995 on a KTM 250. He actually got 14th place at Millville this year, which is absolutely nuts, and he lives like 5 miles down the road from me. So it's been awesome riding with him. We have the 2021 Loretta Lynn's 30 plus champion who lives like 30 minutes from me as well, Brock Peterson. I've been making a huge effort to just hit those guys up whenever I can and ride with them. And before our moto, I go over there and I'm like, guys, I want to eat your roost. Do you mind if I start a couple seconds behind you in this 30-minute moto and just, you know, treat it like we're racing a pro national? And they're always down. We have a really good group of guys around here that always love to ride together. So finding like a solid friend group of guys that are around your ability or even a little bit faster than you is like absolutely key. You know, you can think to yourself that you're pushing 100%. You are not pushing 100% until you have an arch nemesis out on the track hounding you. Even when they weren't at the track though, I would have my dad out there with the pit board writing down lap times for me. I guess the word I would use is accountability. Perceived effort is never the same as real effort, you know? You can go out to the track and do a 30-minute moto and feel like you're going fast the whole time, and you discover that you're going like 5 seconds a lap slower at the end of the moto than you were at the beginning. But with Paul out there writing numbers down on the pit board, you know, there is no cheating. I know what I'm running every lap, and it really pisses me off to see the number go up, you know? So if I see I'm running a 153 lap after lap, and then I see 154, 155 on the board, I don't care how tired I am, I'm hammering down that next lap to get that thing back down to the 153, or if not, even a 152, just to make up for the time that I had lost. So accountability has been huge. Training, I've gotten really tight with the Polar guys. I'm gonna be making some videos showing you guys how you can like automatically record lap times on your Polar watch and all that. So it's just another way that, you know, keeps me accountable, make sure I'm putting in the seat time and the work and everything. And that's been a huge part of my program, is just accountability. Riding with other guys who are hungry, that can hold you accountable. You know, just basically waking up and knowing that if I don't go for a road bike, I'm gonna see Chris Perbula ride past my house on his road bike, and I don't want him to be putting in work that I'm not putting in. So just having some friendly rivalry, I would say, is definitely something else that helped me out big time this year. Also, having gnarly tracks to ride. We're pretty fortunate around here to have some really good public tracks, but we're even more fortunate to have some really good like sandy backyard tracks that guys just leave rough and don't groom. You guys probably saw the videos that I posted from a track called Leffler's, which is just a couple miles down the road from me. The track started out actually pretty smooth at the beginning of like March or whatever, but by the time the season rolled around, it was so beat to crap, almost unrideable, but that's like how a pro national is. So instead of going to the perfectly groomed public tracks, I would hit everyone up and I'm like, guys, we are going and we are grinding out motos on the piece of crap, beat to snot track. Like, we're gonna go do 30s out there, because if we can do 30-minute motos out at Leffler's, we can do 30-minute motos everywhere. Or even when I did go to the public tracks, I would purposely hit the main line, that's the roughest, just to tire me out that little extra bit, and just, you know, you're never gonna have a smooth track at a pro national, so why would I practice the smooth lines at the practice tracks? If a certain rut in a corner had a mean, nasty hook in it, I would purposely aim for that rut, especially if it was a little wet, because that's how like every pro national track is. But yeah, guys, I'm probably getting super long-winded at this point. I feel like I could sit here for hours and kind of talk about this season, just because it's been so good. I'm really proud of, you know, not only the result, but the hard work and effort that we put in, and I'm just excited to do it all again. So I'm not exactly sure what the next couple of months are going to hold, whether we're doing Supercross or not. It's going to kind of rely on a couple different factors, like how much support I can find in the meantime, and see if it makes it worth it, really. With gas prices going up and everything, on top of that, you got to find a place to live that's not super expensive, and then riding a Supercross track every day is like $70 to $100 a day, so it's kind of wild. Definitely very expensive to do Supercross, but it can be pretty lucrative if you find the right support. So I'll be reaching out to sponsors over the next couple of weeks and months and just trying to dial in a program. But if nothing else, we'll obviously 100% be doing the Outdoor Nationals again next season. So we're gonna be working super hard for that. And hopefully we can see kind of the same level of improvement that we saw this year. And I think if we do that, we'll be looking at you know, top 20s for sure every moto, and maybe even dipping into like the 15s. What I really want is to kind of land on some sort of like fill-in ride, I just want like one weekend of factory, you know, even if it's at the end of the year, someone gets hurt and they just call me in for like one weekend. I just want like one weekend where I'm like a sort of factory dude, you know. I think that would be sick. So yeah, I guess that's a little look into how I got so much better this year. Hopefully it helps you guys out a little bit. If you have any questions, definitely drop them down below. I'll either reply with a comment or maybe I'll make another video if you guys would like to see that. But yeah, thank you guys very much for the support. Like I said, the vlogs will be coming very soon. Feels good to get behind the camera again, and I'll see you guys again very soon. So Thunder Valley vlog coming out probably tomorrow or the next day. So hope you guys are looking forward to that. We'll catch you in the next one. See you guys.